The grand ballroom of the Shilla Hotel in Seoul had never felt so tense. On a Friday afternoon, just before sunset, the usually serene hotel grounds were transformed into a sea of flashing cameras, anxious reporters, and murmuring fans. Journalists from every major Korean and international outlet had descended upon the venue within hours of receiving the cryptic invitation. Lee Jun-ho and Yoona, an important announcement. 4 p.m., Shilla Hotel. Press only. Nobody knew exactly what to expect. Whispers of a scandal, perhaps. Some speculated about a joint film project, others about a philanthropic initiative. But as the clock struck 4 and the grand doors to the ballroom opened, what everyone saw stunned them into silence. Lee Jun-ho and Yoona walked in together, hand in hand, wearing matching calm yet determined expressions. Jun-ho looked striking in a sharp black suit that accentuated his tall frame, while Yoona wore an elegant ivory dress, understated yet radiant, like a quiet flame. There was no trace of their usual distance, no polite separation. Instead, they moved like two people carrying the weight of something heavy, and ready to set it down before the world. The whispers grew louder as they approached the podium. Reporters leaned forward, fingers poised over keyboards. Photographers adjusted their lenses. Every breath in the room seemed to wait for them to speak. Jun-ho's manager briefly took the microphone, his voice steady but tinged with nervousness. "Thank you for joining us on such short notice. Jun-ho and Yoona have something they wish to share directly with you, and with the public." Jun-ho took the mic next, his deep voice resonating through the ballroom. For a moment he just looked out at the crowd, his eyes scanning the rows of eager faces. Yoona stood slightly behind him, her hands clasped in front of her, her chest rising and falling with quiet emotion. Finally, Jun-ho spoke. "We have called you here today to tell you the truth, about us, about everything. Please listen." The murmurs ceased entirely. He drew a breath. "Last year, after several beautiful years together, we decided to part ways. It was not because of a lack of love, but because we believed we needed space, time, understand ourselves and what we truly wanted." Yoona's eyes glistened as she nodded, stepping forward to stand beside him. She added softly, "We thought that giving each other distance would help us figure out whether our feelings were real, or just a habit we were afraid to break." The room remained hushed, hanging on every word. Jun-ho continued, explaining how they'd quietly broken up after their schedules became overwhelming, after public scrutiny became suffocating. Didn't announce it, didn't release a statement, because they didn't want to make it final if it didn't have to be. They simply slipped out of each other's lives and tried to carry on. In those months apart, Jun-ho said, buried himself in filming, working late nights, pouring all his emotions into his performances. Yoona, meanwhile, traveled to Europe, spending time in Paris and Rome, attempting to forget. But neither could. Yoona spoke about the nights she'd sit by the Seine River in Paris, watching the city lights ripple over the water, and think of him. "I realized I was writing his name over and over in my journal," she admitted, her voice cracking with emotion. Months ago, it was Jun-ho who finally broke the silence. He called her late one night and asked if she'd meet him. They chose a quiet cafe in Town, one they used to frequent before they became too famous. For hours they sat in that cafe, talking, laughing, crying, realizing that nothing had really changed, that the love was still there, only clearer now. That night, Yoona said, smiling faintly at Jun-ho, "I knew I didn't want to live another day pretending I could be happy without him." Jun-ho squeezed her hand as he looked out into the sea of cameras. "So here we are," he said firmly. "Together again. And this time, we are not afraid to say it. No more hiding." With those words, the dam broke. Reporters began shouting questions, cameras flashed wildly, and the hashtags #JunHoYoona, #ShillaConfession, and #LoveBeyondFear began trending worldwide within minutes. But Jun-ho and Yoona stood still, hands entwined, braving the storm of attention with the quiet dignity of two people who had decided they would rather face the world honestly, together. As the initial shock of their announcement settled over the room, the questions began to pour in like a torrent. "How will this affect your careers?" one reporter demanded. "What did your families say?" another pressed. What do you say to fans who feel betrayed?" A third shouted over the chaos. Junho's gaze was steady as he answered, "We have thought about all of that. We know it won't be easy, but we choose each other. We hope the people who care about us can understand why we made this choice," Yoona added, her voice more emotional but equally firm. "We know we're not perfect, but we want to be honest. Even if that means facing criticism, we would rather live honestly than keep hiding. We hope our fans can support us for that." When asked why they had decided to go public now, after all the months of silence, Yoona took a moment to compose herself before replying, "Because pretending we were just friends was hurting us. A secret this big. It eats at you." And I wanted to stand beside him proudly, without having to look away when someone asked me if I loved him. Junho glanced at her then, his expression softening. "And I didn't want to waste another day pretending I didn't miss her." The room quieted again as they shared a small smile, the kind of smile that spoke volumes more than words ever could. They began sharing tender details of the months they spent apart, how Yoona had sent him a handwritten journal of memories for his birthday, even though they weren't speaking. Junho had secretly arranged for a bouquet of her favorite white lilies to be delivered to her hotel in Paris, signed only, "Still thinking of you." The ballroom seemed to collectively sigh at the intimacy of those confessions. The couple also revealed that they had chosen the Shilla Hotel for this press conference on purpose. This was the very same hotel where, 3 years ago, they had first posed for a photograph together at an awards ceremony, a night they later admitted was the beginning of their feelings for each other. "It felt right to come full circle," Junho explained, looking around the room. "This is where it started. This is where we tell the truth." When asked about their future, both were cautious but hopeful. Junho said, "We still have our individual careers, of course, but we won't hide our relationship anymore. We'll take it one step at a time. But who knows what the future holds?" Yoona blushed at that, but didn't deny it. Instead, he simply held his hand tighter. By then, reactions outside the hotel were already making waves. Fan communities were flooding social media with messages of support, with hashtags like #if they are happy we are happy and #Yoona forever dominating Twitter and Instagram. One poignant message from a fan went viral: "Love is hard enough without the world watching. I'm proud of them for being brave." Even industry insiders began weighing in, with colleagues posting encouraging comments and sharing their own stories of watching the two struggle with the burden of secrecy over the years. As the press conference drew to a close, Junho and Yoona stood together at the podium one last time. Together, they bowed deeply to the crowd. "Thank you for hearing us," Junho said. "We hope you'll walk this road with us." As they walked off stage, they paused at the edge of the ballroom. Yoona looked up at Junho and whispered something that only the nearest microphones caught. "No more goodbyes." Junho smiled, leaning down to kiss her forehead as the cameras flashed one last time. Together, they walked out into the warm, golden light of the Seoul evening, still holding hands, a quiet but unbreakable unit. Outside the Shilla Hotel, waiting fans gasped and cheered as the couple appeared. Against the backdrop of a fiery sunset, they walked through the crowd, ignoring the shouts of questions, stopping only once to wave before slipping into their car. The last image many saw, and which would circulate for days, was of them through the tinted window, still leaning close, still smiling softly at each other, as if the entire nation wasn't watching. Was an image that would come to symbolize not just their love, but the courage it takes to choose each other in the face of every